The pipe is broken, but we're back in the bathrobe for this last episode of BS with S.A.C, at least New Tricks Edition. When last we left off, William had just used a bunch of small little magic things to make him talk louder or things like that, to make it appear as though the Sword of McFinn were amazingly super powerful, which he then used to scare off the Duke of Pembroke. Also, for those of you who are wondering what was going on with Carlos the Dwarf and the twin bag and the whatchamacallit, the kobolds suddenly surrounding the army in the Sixth Realm without anyone noticing that they'd snuck up on them, the kobolds, one by one, went into the bottomless bag, which went in the twin bag, and they'd climb out. That's what Carlos got busted doing, was bringing the twin bag outside of the siege area so they could discreetly smuggle an army through. Anyway, so, let's finish this thing off. Chapter 22, Barrow's End. A year had passed since Marcus Bloodstone set out to clean up the city of Freeport. A year since the kobolds reclaimed the lion's share of the Sixth Realm south of the World River. 11 months had passed since the new Duke of Pembroke and the new mayor of Freeport allied themselves with one another and set to uniting all of the Sixth Realm under a banner of peace and equality. In the same month, the kobolds of Pembroke sent men and resources to Barrow's End to aid in the rebuilding efforts. 10 months passed. The adventuring trio, consisting of Ollivander, Sally, and Harry Smythe, killed a nest of dragons that had taken a liking to peasants. It had been 9 months since the last major skirmish with pirates ended in a victory for the free people of the Sixth Realm. 7 months ago, the Sixth League established a governing body wherein the various baronies, duchies, kingdoms, and free cities could resolve their differences diplomatically in hopes of curbing unnecessary violence. 6 months ago, the League crushed an elf supremacist rebellion agitated in no small part by the previous Duke of Pembroke. 5 months ago, the last major unaligned power of the Sixth Realm signed the Pembroke-Freeport Treaty and joined the Sixth League. 3 months ago, McFinn's heir married the poor daughter of a miller. Ollivander presided as best man. 2 months ago, the heir published the book Bottomless Possibilities, Out-of-the-Box Thinking for the Modern Adventurer, which became a runaway bestseller, as scribes struggled frantically scribbling in their scriptoriums to keep up with the demand. A month ago, Sally Sunshine, accompanied by Ollivander, met with rulers of the Fourth Realm to aid in their own efforts to create a unifying league. 3 weeks ago, the Fifth Realm followed their lead, with William and Sally mediating the preliminary discussions. Sally's impeccable knack for navigating murky social situations proved more formidable in politics than it ever had at the Laughing Raven. A week ago, Ollivander left to visit William, and shortly after dawn, he arrived to celebrate a day historians had not yet named. William and Sarah sat on the front porch of their recently finished home, finishing their breakfast over the brisk air of an autumn morning. Ollivander walked up the dirt path leading to the house in his traveling clothes, a bedroll and pack strapped to his back. William placed his dishes on a table and hopped down off the porch to meet his friend with a handshake and manly hugging, arms clutched between them and vigorous pats on the back. "How have you been?" Ollivander asked, his deep voice rich and resonant as always. "I've been good, keeping busy." William gestured to a field of assorted crops running up behind the house. "Farming?" Ollie asked with a baritone laugh. "No grand adventures, then? An unchosen guy like me? Nah, not professionally at least. I've got everything I could want right here, but maybe one day, when the need demands it, we'll see." He shrugged and led Ollivander up to the porch where he bowed to Sarah Overhill. "Mrs. Overhill, a pleasure as always," he said, kissing her hand. "Likewise, Ollie." She smiled, pure, unadulterated sunshine. "Would you care for some juice or breakfast?" "That would be lovely." Ollivander had a seat while the two went inside to the kitchen to prepare a plate of eggs and sausage and bread for him. Above the hearth hung a honed and polished scimitar, and a plaque giving a brief account of the Battle of the Forgotten Cemetery. Back on the porch, they ate in silence, rocking to and fro on the swings and rockers and savoring the serenity of life in the country. "I hear they're putting up a barn for you today," Ollie said between bites of toast and eggs. "Yeah," William said, chewing on a bit of fruit. "I'm thinking once it's up, after the festivities are done, we can pull a table in there, have dinner to celebrate everything." Sounds good. Surprised they haven't made you mayor yet. They tried. Turned them down. I gave the job to Sarah. That a fact? Ollivander asked, pulling a pipe from his pocket and lighting it. It is, Sarah replied, blushing. First female mayor in the town's history. Definitely the youngest, too. She helped hold the resistance together when Wolfred's men occupied the town. Also, they figure it makes me mayor by proxy. Any idea when the others will be here? Ollivander asked. Later, probably after the barn raising starts, but before it ends. How about the family? Soon as I get word. They're not too big on the rigors of travel if they can avoid it. Made me take a long trip while they packed. Should be coming through the twin bag shortly. William nodded and helped his wife clean up the dishes. A half-hour later, Sally and Harry joined them, apologizing for the absence of the other Smythes. Alistair had a feud to put down between several families in Oxbridge, and Helena had exams at the academy. Others, human and kobold alike, began to arrive soon after, and they helped the newlyweds prepare for the festivities. The Overhill farm buzzed with activity. 1,000 delicious scents filled the house and wafted out of the windows as a small army of individuals cooked and arranged dishes inside. In the yard, Ollivander organized lumber and tools. William supervised the other preparations, setting out tables and chairs, clearing workspaces, keeping separate those neighbors who weren't speaking to one another, telling the bards where to set up. Beehives weren't so busy as the Overhill home. At noon, the musicians began to play, and the tables were lined with a feast of edible delights of every flavor, texture, and color. Games were played, songs were sung, food was eaten in absurd quantities. As the day passed, William and Sarah were joined by Marcus, Winifred, John, and Wolfred. Some people in town were still a little touchy when it came to Wolfred's presence after the burning of Barrow's End a year prior, for Wolfred had insisted he take the blame so that Sarah need never live with the shame of her father's actions. Even so, most Barrow's Endians had gotten beyond it when he helped rebuild the town better than before. Even those who disliked the man, out of respect for William, they remained civil, and shared their revels with him. All down the long tables, chatter flowed like the world river, going every place imaginable. One could hear gossip spread, recipes exchanged, predictions about the winter. People swapped stories about and songs and jokes. William could hear Bloody John telling the tale of the Sixth Gate. Marcus and Winifred recounted the tale of the Shrine of McFinn, their hands clasped together in the throes of passionate new love. Ollivander told the tale of the dirty boy who stumbled into his tavern, and the man who faced down an entire army. William blushed. Heroes were telling stories about him. As the sun set, the citizens of Barrow's End thanked their hosts for the lovely meal and the grand festivities. William and Sarah thanked them for the new barn. Wolfred, Bloody John, Marcus, Winifred, and the Smythes helped clean up and clear one of the smaller tables to move into the new barn, leaving the doors open to provide them with a view of the blazing orange-red sun sinking into the fields beyond. They each took their seats around the table, plates full of leftovers. Ollivander tapped a keg he'd brought with him in the bottomless bag and poured pints for everyone. William cleared his throat and raised his glass. The table silenced as everyone turned their eyes to him and raised their own. I would like to thank you all for coming to celebrate a year to the day when the former Duke of Pembroke was put down, ending his reign and paving the way for the peace the Sixth Realm now knows. A peace that is spreading to the other realms as one candle in the darkness lights others. The table loosed a round of hears. I would like to take this time to request a moment of silence for Craggamore, the sole death and the near bloodless revolution. Stillness permeated the barn as the gathering of friends meditated on the loss. There's a typo there. Meditated on the loss. Only the chirping of birds and the wind rustling through the trees and fields could be heard. Though he had no way to know it, his death helped change the very nature of the world in which we live. His life, lost due to a failure to communicate, is heralding in a new era of understanding. I think we can all agree the world is better for it. To Craggamore! To Craggamore! They toasted in unison. Wolfred wiped a tear from his eye. Of course, this dinner isn't about me. It's about us. It's about the funny little twists and turns destiny takes and giving it the cold shoulder when you don't like what it has to say. It's about choosing your own path. Marcus and Winifred, whose skill and determination have made Freeport truly free once more. Bloody John, once one of the most feared pirates of all time, now the captain of one of the most noble examples of city guards around. Sarah, the sweet daughter of a simple miller and formidable rebel to any opposition. Wilfred, who showed us the difference between terrifying monster and benevolent ruler. Ollivander, the most chosen man in the world and one hell of a bartender. Speaking of chosen, Sally and Harry, I'd choose you two over whole armies any day. To us, they toasted again.
Dad,
Yes, Gideon?
can you do the secret password?
Give me a moment. To second chances, Bloody John roared, heaving his glass high in the air. To learning something new. Actually, here, let me take that back. To second chances, Bloody John roared, heaving his glass high in the air. To learning something new, Ollivander added. To family, cried Sally. To binding 2 wands of lightning to your sword so when you hack at something it also gets a nasty double dose of electricity, added Harry. To mutual understanding, barked Wilfred. To better days, said Marcus. To better nights, smiled Winifred, giving Marcus a suggestive nudge. The crowd at the table erupted into a series of innuendo-laden barks, except Wilfred, who clapped. To our friends and neighbors far and wide, added Sarah, smiling to the table. To Boatswain, said William. Everyone stared blankly at the young man, holding his glass for such an arbitrary toast. Beg pardon, asked Bloody John. For the past year, I have been trying to think of the word. Boatswain? Bosun? I don't know. The guy in charge of supplies and keeping things running smoothly on a boat. What you used to be on the Scalawag? No, I was a quartermaster. I thought the quartermaster was just the guy in charge of the quarterdeck. The guy who held the helm. Bosun was in charge of the ship's day-to-day operations. Oh, yeah, it's true on merchant ships and naval boats. Quartermaster does it on a pirate vessel. Very important man. William grunted and nodded. He raised his glass with a shrug. To believing in yourself and trusting your instincts. To life, cried someone, as they all raised their pints and clinked them together. Until the wee hours of the morning, they ate and drank and sang songs and told stories and made merry. William held Sarah close as the last of their guests went to bed, and together they watched the wandering star lazily make its way across the sky toward the eastern horizon. In the morning, they said their goodbyes and made their vows to keep in touch, to return the following year and pay homage to the people and events that brought them together and changed the world. And so they did. As years passed, in their darkest hours of need, the others always found a way to come together and help. And every year, when the autumn moon signaled the first harvest of the Kibera root, they met in the barn of William and Sarah Overhill for a feast of remembrance. Ollivander and his family adventured together from time to time, and used their wealth to open a school for heroes, creating a dynasty of fearless defenders of goodness and virtue. Marcus and Winifred married and ruled over Freeport for many years, and their children and their children's children and several generations beyond carried on their legacy of peace and prosperity. Bloody John became general of one of the mightiest armies the 12 realms had ever seen. Though he never married, he managed to produce a large number of heirs, which Ollivander had often warned him would happen. Wilfred established not only a homeland for his people, but also a sanctuary for any oppressed creatures, man or monster, and the lands of Pembroke, once known for corruption and exploitation, became synonymous with opportunity, a chance for a fresh start in a fair country. William and Sarah lived happily to the end of their days. Life would not always be perfect for them. Like every married couple, they had their arguments and disagreements. There would be years of drought when the crops would not come in, but they had each other, and in time they had children and grandchildren, and at the end of the day it was always enough. William still adventured from time to time, but only when circumstances demanded it. For the most part, he preferred the peace and quiet of home and family to the wild dangers of the road, and always felt content to spend his days working his field, or hammering away in his smithy, or raising his family. Upon his death, a large stone appeared in the town square of Barrow's End. A sword, breathtakingly beautiful with its jewel-laden hilt and pommel of pure gold, rose out from the stone for all to see. Though the blade bore no inscription, everyone knew its meaning. It was the sword of McFinn, the sword of William the Unchosen, and one day, when destiny spoke, it would be pulled from the stone, and its power would fall to a hero of the people, one who would save the world in its most desperate hour, one who would be William's heir. Men, women, and children came from miles around to pull the sword, but none ever succeeded. Over time, Pulling the sword became a tradition all adolescents sought out to attempt. Pilgrimages were made to Barrow's End so that all might have a chance to prove their worth, and in times of danger, when dark shadows fell across the land and peril lurked at every corner, people would come from far and wide to pull the sword, but none succeeded. However, each failure gave the world a reason to celebrate, for as long as the sword remained unpulled, there was hope. Hope that the world could still be saved, could still save itself, without a chosen one to take up the blade and save it for them. Tales spread the world over about his exploits and around campfires and beside bedsides. People would go to sleep hearing stories of William the Unchosen. Some were true, and some were embellishments. Some were actually the adventures of others that had been misattributed to him. Some were flat-out lies. Heated scholarly debate among historians centered on the accuracy of these tales, and how William could call himself unchosen if he was the prophesied heir of Macfin, for William took the secret of the sword to his grave. Many children grew up hearing tales of William the Unchosen, and upon reaching adulthood, took up arms and set out for adventure, not content to wait on the hope that a chosen stranger would ride in on his white steed to save them. Many young men died, but a great many more lived and did great deeds and good works because they had decided long ago in the safety of their childhood beds that they didn't need divine permission to make a difference. It was a legacy William could be proud of. The end. Alright. Well, that was New Tricks. I hope you enjoyed it. Probably next time we do it, we might do a few of my short stories, and then we'll see if we can't come back for the professional corpse. Won't that be fun? But for the time being, I hope you enjoyed the story. I hope you take a moment to wait a while before going back to read it in person yourself, because I found a lot of typos while reading through. This is why it's dangerous to work without an editor, even if you used to be a school teacher. Thank you for sticking with me. Until next time, have good dreams and good night.